Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 16th day of October, Wednesday. I've got a great show with you for the night. Going to give you my thoughts about those comments Jerry Jones said yesterday on his radio show, or call-in show. It's not his radio show. And how I may have handled that one way or the other. We'll talk about that. Plus, talk a little bit of college football. Last weekend, like I said, was a better week for the NFL, for the college, more entertaining than it was for the NFL last weekend. Not like that every week. I normally do like the NFL more in college, but it was. And I'm going to talk about Oregon. They changed the rules in NCAA now. They've altered the rule because of Dan Lanning comment after Saturday about intentionally putting 12 men on the field. I'll talk about that. Plus, Keith Engel get his thoughts on this week's biggest games, including Georgia and Texas. So, got a big show with you for tonight. Stand by. We'll take a few short, quick announcements, and I'll be back here in just a few on the Real Sports Scope, and we'll hit the ground running. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching the sharp-dressed man and the big story breaker, Robert Butler, on Sports Scope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows, giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
All righty then, folks. Hello, Patrick. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for watching the program. Okay. Now, I said I touched on this a little bit yesterday. This story broke late in the afternoon. I didn't get a hold of it until later on. It was about the Jerry Jones calling in, doing his weekly radio show. I guess it's like an interview thing. He wants everybody to know his voice in the Dallas area, talking about the Cowboys game, and they were totally embarrassed last week. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Last Sunday by Detroit, and he didn't like the questioning about this and off-season moves and all that. This is 105.3 The Fan, which is owned by Odyssey. It's not owned by Jerry Jones, There was there's three guests. There are three hosts on this show per se. That's one thing I'm not a fan of. I don't like panels. You all know that. Two is one-on-one is the way I would have done this. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to play this bite. And I didn't hear the question, but you kind of got an idea. I mean, they got humiliated at home by Detroit. They're a top-heavy team. He's paid Dak Prescott $60 million. He's paid $35 to his wide receiver. They're an imbalanced team. They've been an imbalanced team for a while. He overpays the guys he likes just to compliment the fact that they've drafted them. That's always been – Jerry's been his own worst enemy. He won't let coaches coach completely and set he won't let them set a culture. Look at Parcells, the problems he had, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And you know, it ended there with Jimmy Johnson. I remember one of the offensive linemen said, and I can't remember who it was, and this was a while back, that people would look in. This was here recently. While they're lifting weights in the preseason, tourists would be able to look in the window and look at them lift weights. Everything's a sideshow with Jerry Jones. Now, of course, they're the most valuable franchise in the sports franchise in the world, but it's more about that. You know, you got a lot of ex-Cowboys having big TV jobs than it is about actually winning, you know, with Jerry Jones. It's been like that for over, we're pushing 30 years now. Their last Super Bowl was 95, 96. You know, I want to say they haven't been to an NFC championship game in quite some time as well. The divisional game, yes, but not NFC championship game. So here's the bite. And then I'll go over a little bit, few more notes and tell you what I think. This was yesterday, Jerry Jones on 105.3 The Fan.
This is not your job. Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something and I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job.
Well, my job is to ask why.
Get a job, or I'll get somebody else to ask these questions, man.
Jerry, we're trying to figure out why the team is.
I'm not kidding you. You're not going to figure out what the team is doing right or wrong. If you are, or any 5 or 10 like you, you need to come to this meeting I'm going to today. There are 32 teams here. You're geniuses.
Jerry,
okay? Y'all really think you're going to sit here with a microphone and tell me all of the things that I've done wrong and without going over the rights?
Condescending POS he was right there, I tell you. And let me say this before I go into all these notes here. Pending on my mood, pending on if I was prepared from a mental perspective to react to a guy like that, being in the sports talk industry, I don't give two flips about getting fired. I mean, right now I do ride share and I do carrier work and I do this sports podcast. But knowing what I know about Jerry Jones' history and the way he has used power moves against Jimmy Johnson going back 30 years, he had this guy from some billionaire, some prince from, I don't know, somewhere in the Middle East. He was wanting to watch the team meeting or something like that. And Jimmy Johnson said no. And he says, well, on the team. So that's a power move, you know, this little stuff like that. And going back to what I already know about a few years later with Bill Parcells. Parcells wanted to move off guys like Terrell Owens. There's an incident where wide receiver Antonio Bryant, we're talking 20 years ago, where Jerry would cut a guy after he got into what it looked like was reported a physical altercation with Parcells. So if I'm working in Dallas and I know that, And I know that. I'm mentally prepared. I'm mentally prepared to say whatever I really want to say to a guy like a Jerry Jones, who's obviously coming off as a total vanity bully. But, reading up on this story, he doesn't own the station. He could find another sports station in Dallas to do that weekly interview with them. But I would say, I tell you what, so what do you want me to do, sir? This is not a public relations firm here. I'm not a public relations guy for the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm sure that would have really ticked him off. You do whatever you need to do. If you want to find somebody else to talk to, and this is after I done asked him something respect, but if he would have said that to me, I'll say, well, what you probably need to do is stop overpaying average players, sir, and let coach, like I just said a minute ago, let coaches do the coaching there and let them establish the culture. Since you haven't won a Super Bowl in 28 years, you just now had a road win in the playoffs in 30 years when you beat the Tampa Bay Bucks a few years ago. Maybe you should try that, Mr. Jones. And I'm sure he would have probably he might have had a stroke if I'd have said that to him. But that is about the way I would have handled something like that, and maybe I would get fired, but I would end up being a martyr. Get another job. And like I said, I would just quit. And if they insisted on firing me, I'd go back here and I would do podcast and drive Uber or something before I put up with something like that after a guy like Jerry Jones talked to me like that, Pickles. He's another one of these, and the public sees it. It's already went viral. Just another billionaire bully trying to push around the small guy. Most of this country that watches these games are not people like Jerry Jones. They're blue-collar, hardworking truck drivers, police officers, construction workers, dishwashers, security people that make average salaries, that want a little bit of escapism watching that football game, And I think that's what the people would want to hear. But, yeah, I'd light him up, and I'm sure he would have hung the phone up. But I'd have got everything off my chest, and maybe the boss would have fired me. But, again, I would have been a martyr. I don't know exactly who specifically he was talking to in this thing, Pickles, but I do know that this is a 3-panel show here. This is a 3-panel show, which I'm not a fan of having I'm not a fan of having 3 guys on one show anyway. So let me give these guys some credit here. Okay. All right. You got RJ Choppy. I don't know if that's his real name. You got Sean Sheriff. And that may be Sharif. You got RJ Choppy and Bobby Belt. So you've got a 3-person, which is it's nonsense, but it is what it is on this station here. So these guys have got national recognition for getting put down by Jerry Jones. And the quote, one of them said, "Now, if you think I'm interested on a damn phone call and you're over the radio sitting," that was Jerry Jones. RJ Choppy said, one of the hosts, he says, "I didn't get upset with it, but it was like, you know what? Bleep you, man," said Choppy. And then one of the other guys said it was really insulting, really demeaning, really insulting. And again, out of nowhere, Sharif said, "We've done 14 years of interviews with this man. He is 82. Also clarified that Jerry Jones does not pay him, and therefore Odyssey signs his checks. I understand that, but I wouldn't put up with that. And if my boss told me to apologize to him for asking questions, I said, well, there you go. We're done here, and I'll go out, work out on the street before I sit there and listen to a guy like that. Too many cooks on the show. Yeah. Pickle says Jerry's kids are losing. Jerry don't want the blame. Too many cooks spoil the stew. Yeah, if it would just be me, yeah, he's up there playing the victim, saying you're supposed to say something. He's used to people kissing his rear end, and I'd have lit him up, Pickles. I would have lit that dude up. And, of course, they would have fired me, and then, it would have probably helped my brand overall, but it would have been scary there not having to make, not having any income. But I wouldn't let that fear sit over me and put up with a bunch of nonsense, especially from a guy like Jerry Jones, who he's been the problem on this team for 30 years. Everybody knows it. The whole fan base knows it. So, anyways, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. That grinded my gears, like Peter Griffin would say. Him talking down to these guys like that. Pickle says, if you ain't been fired, talking about the radio business, you ain't trying hard enough. Imus, Howard Stern, all the greats have been fired, Anyways, okay. So interesting story out of college. I want to make sure to get this out of the way before the great Keith Engel comes on. So Oregon's Dan Lanning. I told you all that I thought this game was going to be, I said this in the preseason. I said this game between Ohio State and Oregon, Ohio State may be the better team, and they've got a receiver on there that looks like a man-child. He looks great. He is his last name is Smith. He's a cousin of Geno Smith, the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. He was at the game. This Ohio State wide receiver is a freshman, and he looks like he can play in the NFL right now. Great big old guy, great body. Just, man, get open fast. He got everything you can ask for him. I think they probably are the better team, but up there in Eugene, as I said on Friday's program, I did not think that they haven't lost a long, long time to this is a new division. Remember, this is Ohio State. It's just now, this is their first year for Oregon being in the Big Ten. Ohio State's first time going up there, that I know of. I know they played down on Ohio State, and Oregon beat them down there. But Ohio State looks like the better team per se. On a neutral field, I would take Ohio State. This is a 1-point game, anyways. So Dan Lanning, the head coach here, during that last drive, says he intentionally sent 12 men on the field. Now, why he would say that, I don't know. Maybe too many players knew about it. The word may got out. But he essentially sent 12 men on Ohio State on the field during Ohio State's last drive to exploit a loophole in the rule book to run time off the clock. You get the 5-yard penalty, but you use the time, and they were going against time. This was a field goal game, and he's trying to milk that clock for time and want Ohio State to use that last timeout here. Very Bill Belichick. I thought it was a pretty smart move here. But that being said, so they end up changing the rule. ESPN reported today that they have changed the rule here. If I can make sure and get it in here somewhere. Let's see. Make sure, okay. In a release Wednesday, the NCAA issued a new rule interpretation of how to handle a penalty for 12 players on the field in the final 2 minutes of either half, not just the second half. If the defense has 12 players actively participate in the down, the offense can choose with the 5-yard penalty to have the clock reset to the time the game had been displayed at the snap. No time change would be made if there were 12 players, but one of them was attempting to leave the field and did not affect the play. Oregon's coach, Dan Lanning, said Monday the Ducks intentionally used 12 men on defense against them to help run time off the clock. It's a pretty smart move. That's a Belichick move, ain't it, Pickles? Yeah, that is a Belichick move and a half. You know, so that's clever coaching. I blame that loss on the quarterback, on the coaching on Ohio State for one thing. And again, Will Howard, I mean, you've got to be, you are a veteran college player. You're a transfer from another team. You started at Kansas State. You've got to be more cognizant of the time, and you had timeout. There is just no excuse for him to run up in the middle of the field. That's the worst thing you can do, other than maybe fumble the ball and turn it over, is run the clock out. I would rather throw the ball for a Hail Mary than do something like that. You know, they just didn't manage it right. It's a lot of pandemonium. You really, really have to practice those situations. Now, Peyton Manning's really good at it. Brady's good at those type of situations. Mahomes is a master at it as well. But he just did not handle that right. During that, they had some time there. But for that game to end the way that ended, it's got to be despicable for an Ohio State fan there, per se. But I just mainly put that on the quarterback. You are the general there. You know, that whole sequence there. You have to draw up better plays. You got to take advantage of outings there, and you got to learn to spike that ball. None of that happened. And of course, they come up short. They were close to midfield, and I guess they felt like they wouldn't in field goal range. But Ryan Day has got to make that decision before as well with that little bit of time left. Do you really just go for the super long field goal that's probably impossible for your kicker to make close to 60 yards? Or with 5-6 seconds to go, do you go ahead and set up a Hail Mary type of play and do a hook and ladder or whatever, a lateral back and see what happens? You just can't have him running out like that and sliding like that and the clock running out with the timeout in your back pocket. So that's what I thought it was. You know, that's the way I thought that thing would play out. I'm not going to say I act like I'm surprised with that. Other notes from the college game. Yes, Texas demolished Oklahoma. But remember, folks, Oklahoma was playing a true freshman quarterback. I want to remind you that they blew out Oklahoma 2 years ago. Okay. And they went on to lose to TCU and Oklahoma State in the regular season that year. So let's not get too high on Oklahoma. They did beat, or Oklahoma, on Texas. They did beat Texas did beat a Michigan team, a team that's lost 18 starters, and they lost their head coach, and they're in trouble with the NCAA. That was not as big a win as one would think. I thought maybe when Michigan beat USC. By the way, man, that I was just watching that replay. I recorded the USC Penn State game, even though I knew the final score here. And Penn State has got this tight end named Tyler Warren. As a side note, from this guy check out these numbers: 17 catches, 224 yards, and a touchdown against USC. About that 10th catch and that long bomb that this guy caught for this Tyler Warren, the senior here, tight end out of Penn State. I don't know why USC didn't double him. But I guess what I'm saying is that Michigan win didn't look that good for USC. Now, they did beat LSU, who went on and beat Ole Miss. That looked good for USC. But, now they've got 3 losses. The Big Ten's really handling them. They lost to Minnesota. They lost at home at a 14-point lead twice, with Penn State having to come all the way across the country and still couldn't hold on to it. They had a lot of defensive lapses, including letting Tyler Warren run wild. So back to Texas's resume. I'm not sure that Texas is even going to beat their 4.5 points favorites against Georgia this weekend. I'm not sure they're going to beat Georgia. I know they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. I said they'd be a good team. Everything that's happened, I predicted that would happen for Texas. I've called them to win the games, but I'm still not sure that Texas will beat Georgia come Saturday, coming off that big game, even though it was a blowout against Oklahoma. Just saying. Texas does have, and they do have two quarterbacks that are going to go pretty well. Quinn Ewers looks a little bit overrated. He's playing pretty good. He's got a great offensive line, probably the best in the country. Arch Manning still got 2 more years to go. He looks like he's going to be another Manning. He reminds me of an Eli Manning with better foot speed, if that makes any sense, talking about Arch Manning. That being said, maybe they do run. This is a big game. This is a big show me, prove it type of game for Texas coming up on Saturday. And again, going back to last weekend, Ole Miss beat by LSU at home, puts LSU, speaking of the devil, that lost to that USC. And, Brian Kelly admitted, hey, look, we don't start well. We do not start well. We're celebrating the game before the game is over with. We're counting, like my dad used to say, counting our chickens before they hatch. But that was a big win against Ole Miss, even though it was in Baton Rouge. So that was an overtime. This was a great weekend. This was a great weekend for college this past weekend. And I think this is going to be another good one with Alabama playing Tennessee and Texas playing Georgia, just to name a few. By the way, Louisville's going to play Miami. I'm recording that game. That's going to be a good one. But LSU off to a rough start, bounce back, big win against Ole Miss. Ole Miss with 2 losses now, on the outside looking in. I know that they have to play Georgia later, and they got to play Oklahoma later. If they beat both of them, they're back into the mix. I don't think that's going to happen. It looks like Ole Miss is going to come up a little short, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lane Kiffin did not take another job at the end of the season, whether it be college or pro. That's just me thinking out loud here, per se. Also, people want to ask me, what about Tennessee and Florida? I predicted that Tennessee would not cover that 17-point spread, that 16.5-point spread. The last time Tennessee done that was 1992, Steve Spurrier's 3rd year. He had a lot of player turnover that year, and Tennessee got the best of them. But for the rest of the 90s and all the way up till now, Florida has gotten the best of Tennessee when Tennessee is favored. I don't think Tennessee's that bad a team. I think that Florida plays very confident against Tennessee. I think they've won 16 out of 20, some ridiculous number like that. And Tennessee sees Florida jerseys, and they just don't play up to par for the most part. But that was a great game. Stand by. Let's take one more quick break because I didn't get that last commercial in. I'll be back. And plus, we'll have Keith Engel here shortly here on the Real Sports Go.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly. National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners. Also,
all right, I'm back here, folks. Live. Sorry about that. I had to adjust my air. Getting a little bit hot in here. Tennessee has got some crazy weather this time of year. As I said before, I do not think that there's going to be a team to go undefeated, even if it's a great team like a Texas. Now, they do deserve to be the number one team as of right now. You know, you've got a team like a Georgia's number 5. And mind you, the only team that's beat Georgia over the past 4 years in the regular season is Alabama. Now, I know this Georgia team doesn't look as crisp as they did last year with Brock Bowers and whatnot, but I do know they still have that depth on the defensive side. And I do think that, what's his name, Carson Beck, that quarterback there at Georgia, I do think that he really started getting his footing underneath him towards the end of that game against Alabama. And I do think that he will have a much better game against Texas. Got Keith Engel backstage. I wanted to get a quick NFL question because it looks like that Drake May he had some really good throws in that game. But let me bring on Keith Engel from TGI Sports here. Hey, Keith, how you doing, buddy?
Hello, Robert. How are you?
Man, I'm good. I was just talking about all these great games we had in college last weekend. But just a quick question. You know, there was a really good throw. Who was that guy's name? Was it Keyshawn Boot that caught that bomb from Drake May?
Yeah, Booty.
Those are the kind of throws that, you know, that would make you say, okay, maybe you got a little something here, right?
There was more to like than not like, I guess. You know,
Yeah.
In a 41-21 game, at least there was some excitement. I mean, if Jacoby Brissett, and I wasn't totally in favor, to be totally transparent, of Drake May playing this early.
Yeah, me neither.
I was afraid of
Line
his confidence issue behind that bad line, and
Yeah.
not great weapons. The running game, Stevenson out, but he played well enough. He took some big hits, but he made enough good throws. I mean, that throw to Butte was on the button.
That was a big time throw.
And maybe he makes some of these guys like Booty and Polk, who hasn't played well and been complaining about Brissett right and left. I mean, I don't think rookies ought to be complaining about anything except doing their job. But listen, you know, they're not going. Are they going to win more games because of Drake May? Maybe one or two. This is still not a good football team. But, you know, look at it. It was 41-21. That would not have been an exciting game if Jacoby Brissett were back there getting sacked, 10 times. It's a good football team, the Texans, and a good defensive team. And Drake May had some really good moments. He had some bad rookie moments.
Yeah.
Holding the ball too long a couple times, a couple interceptions. And they gave Texans a short field a lot, especially in the first quarter or first half. But again, there's more to like than not like. And as long as he's not going to get his clock cleaned for him behind that offensive line and get hurt, I'm okay with this continuing.
Yeah. That's about what I thought you would say, but I had to get your take on that, man. I'm like you. I wouldn't have played him, but I don't know if the owner has a say in this or just Gerard Mayles is saying, you know what, we're getting smoked. We'll just do what we got to do.
I think it's a combination. I do think that, I don't think Gerard Mayo would have made this move without the Kraft saying okay.
Yeah.
But you bring up Gerard Mayo too, and one of my bigger disappointments this year in this team, I didn't expect a lot, but how badly they played, the penalties have been just ridiculous, and that's a coaching thing. And I don't like the way, and I was a big proponent of him getting this job, by the way, again, in total transparency.
Right. It looked good before he did his press conference.
Yeah, right. I'm from the press conference on, I've been like, oh, what did we get ourselves into? Because I watch him. I don't even like his body language on the sideline.
Say this is stuff I'm not seeing on Red Zone.
Yeah, because you're not seeing every play, and you're not
right.
The Patriots aren't in the red zone.
He got his arms crossed. What's his problem with the body language on the
sideline? You watch him, and he's just kind of walking around and shaking his head, and he looks like somebody said it on the professional sports show on National Streaming Sports earlier at 6 when we were on, that he looked like Jay Cutler.
Oh, that's an insult.
I don't know, and maybe it's just his. I thought Gerard Mayo would be more.
Maybe he's a diabetic like Jay Cutler. You want to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, he just looks dour over there. And you can look dour over there if you're Bill Belichick and you got 6 rings, right?
That's true, right?
But with this team, how about let's try to pump them up a little bit and I can't even.
Total opposite with D'Amico Ryans, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a great comparison to me. Two young coaches.
Totally different dynamic.
And totally the demeanor.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm reading too much into it. And it's hard for me to put my finger on it, but I was telling my buddies this last week. I'm like, there's something about the way he carries himself on the sideline that I just don't like. And I combine that with the fact that a lot of the problems on his team, it's not a good team. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, but a lot of things that are happening are coaching issues.
Wow.
Right? Penalties to me are coaching issues.
Yes.
That has to be fixed and cleaned up. You can have bad play, and I get it, but bad penalty after bad penalty. They must have given him
Belichick where he didn't hardly make any mistakes for 20 years. This team stopped in Houston in the first half. Yeah.
Probably 4 or 5 times on third down, and every one of them there was a flag that gave him a first down.
Oh, how frustrating can you be?
And you just take yourself right out of the game. And that comes on to coaches. To me, a lot of that falls on the coaches.
So it looks like he's going to be done in about a year or two.
I mean, I doubt the Crafts will fire him after 1 year and admit they made that big a mistake because they love Mayo, and I like Mayo. He's been a good organization man. He was a good player. Guy. Had to retire early because of injury, and he's been very loyal to the organization. He had other offers to take even coordinator positions where he would have got paid more money and didn't go.
He did.
But again, something's got to change. I think Pickles has got a great point. He does look overly concerned every other play. Maybe that's what it is. He's got this look of concern, like, oh my God, how can we be this bad?
That's lack of being prepared.
And again, it's something that's hard to put my finger on, but there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
And
I don't think he'll fire him after 1 year because he'll try to play the race card and he's going to try to sue the organization. He basically said that in the press conference, Keith.
There is that, he's got that, and Flores, that lawsuit with Flores is still hanging over the league already. So you're right. I doubt and I don't think if he was white too, I think they keep him. The Crafts are loyal people. I mean, they're not going to fire the guy after 1 year.
Yeah.
They're going to give him a chance. This team isn't that good to begin with, and they weren't going to go to the playoffs even if Belichick stayed. So, he'll get another year, but things better start improving pretty quickly.
Yeah. At least give him another offseason to get, because Belichick kind of jacked the draft up for years,
Yeah. Well, yeah. And by the way, they didn't do great last year either. I mean, they did nothing to improve this offensive line. You could take me and 4 other guys, and I'd just stand there and I'd be as good as these guys, for crying out loud.
So, what do you think about the college game last week? My thought was, I'm just going to ask you, was the college Saturday better than the NFL Sunday last? I mean, I know this ain't all the time, but.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean,
I thought it was just me, Keith. I mean, man, those games are exciting.
Look, I think I've talked about it here, and I've talked about it on my shows a lot, that I got a lot of problems with the college game off the field. And
of course.
A lot of the stuff going on. And I made a decision this summer that I'll put that aside and I'll talk about it when I have to, because you can't not talk about it. But as long as the games, and I still have that same energy level and that same excitement level from noon until 1 o'clock in the morning, all day long, I'll still be okay with college football. And so far this year, I am. The guys who are worried about the 12-team playoff and the regular season not matter, every game matters.
Yeah.
Every week there's a huge games. And I hated realignment, but I can tell you it's put some really good games on the schedule that we probably wouldn't have had.
It's Wednesday, and I recorded 5 games Saturday, and I'm just now finishing up Penn State and USC.
Another great game, yeah.
What a great game with that. What's that guy's name? Tyler Warren, a tight end. Have you ever seen a tight end have a game like that?
Well, it was a tremendous game. It was a good football game all the way around. I mean, look at the SEC is like every week there's monster games. We got you just came off a big games the last 2 weeks, and now you got Texas and Georgia playing this week. You got Bama and Tennessee maybe fighting for their lives. They may be fighting for a playoff spot in Rocky Top. A lot of fun.
Did you hear about that story out of Oregon where Dan Lanning said he admitted that he sent 12 men on to run the clock down? Why do you think he admitted that? He probably should have kept that in-house. Now they changed the rule, Keith.
Yeah, I think somebody would have
That's what I was saying too. Yeah.
Somebody would have figured out what he did. I mean, again, it's smart, trade 5 yards for 5 seconds on the clock. That's smart in that situation. But again, you're right. Once he points it out, the NCAA had no choice. We knew the rule would be changed before this coming weekend. I mean, that's smart. I've heard I see the cheater thing thrown out. You're not cheating. It's the rules. It's there. It's been
Belichick done that all the time.
All the time. You just
Vrabel did something similar against Belichick. You remember that?
Yeah.
A few years ago.
Exactly. Finding loopholes in rules is not cheating. I mean, close the loopholes. I mean, that's what the NCAA's done here. Dan Lanning's a really good football coach.
Yeah.
I was talking about this on my show, my college football show before this.
Yes.
That Oregon looks really prepared for Big Ten play because Dan Lanning feels like a Big Ten football coach.
Yes.
USC, UCLA, they don't feel like Big Ten teams yet. It's going to take them time to get that physicality and that mentality to be able to compete week after week. Oregon's already got it. That's a tough football team, and they win football games in the trenches, and that's how you win in the Big Ten. Still, even with all the passing that goes on around college football, you still win games in the trenches. And they're really good there. It's a good football team. I like the way he coaches. And I'd like to know, I don't know yet what happened with the kid with the spitting incident. I'd like to find out what he's done with that. I hope he's suspended this kid at least for a game.
Was that with Oregon? I heard that, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, I didn't see it either, but it happened in the first half, I think. It was a wide receiver, and something happened between him and a defensive back, and he spit in the kid's face, and they threw him right out of the game. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the worst thing you can do to me. That's the ultimate sign of disrespect, right? Yeah. You got a problem with somebody, throw a punch at him like a man, at least. Don't spit in their face. And Lanning, there were some people got after Lanning because, he was consoling the kid after he got thrown out, and, they thought he should have chastise him right there, but I don't think that's Dan Lanning. But I guarantee you that kid heard about it afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
Could have cost his team the game.
Yeah.
And the end of that game, you talked about the Lanning call. The end of that game, I almost felt that there was time. Will Howard should have – everybody was getting on him for not throwing the ball. He wasn't going to throw the ball, 70 yards to the end zone.
Yeah.
He ran the ball up the middle. I think if he had slid, 3-4 seconds sooner, it would have been maybe 5 yards from where he was, maybe a little bit further back. But they would have had time because it was a first down. They could have got up, spiked the ball, and tried to kick a 60-yard.
Well, he had a timeout left, though, right?
He did have a timeout. You're right.
And he didn't even do that, Keith.
If he'd slid and called timeout, and that's on Brian Day, too. He's got to be telling the official, whatever happens here, as soon as that ball's down, I want a timeout. right? I mean, that's just
That is exactly the way I thought that game would end, Keith, because it's pandemonium up there in Eugene.
yeah, it
I
is.
think if they play it again on neutral site, I think Ohio State will probably beat them.
Well, they'll probably play in the championship game, and that'll be in. I think they play Lucas Oil Stadium. I think, right? Is that where they play the Big Ten championship?
Okay.
So I see very little.
They're in Vegas.
No, I think it's in Indiana.
Okay.
Indianapolis.
Okay.
Yeah. I see very little chance. Although there's some teams with other good records. I mean, Indiana's playing really good football. Penn State, we know.
Yeah.
Penn State's got to beat Ohio State, though.
That's
I mean,
true.
their only path to the championship game is to beat Ohio State during the regular season,
Yeah.
and we know Franklin's record there is not good. So I would say you could theoretically see these teams play 2 more times. You might see them play in the Big Ten championship game, and you might see them play in the playoff.
Yeah. I
That would be
just thought
interesting.
that Ohio State's got a lot of good players. Oregon, that was a big win for Oregon, though, man. That's
Huge. I mean, again,
because they were looking like they were overrated with giving up all the rushing yards prior to that.
but if you're paying close attention early in the year, they just got by Idaho to start the season. They
Boise State.
Well, Boise State's a good football team, by the way. That's not that game looks better. That win looks better now than it might have been. Boise State's really good.
That running back's good. Yeah.
But you can't be beating them by a field goal with no time left at home, right? That shouldn't be happening. But if you watch the last 3 weeks or so, they really started to take control in the trenches, as I said, and controlling the line of scrimmage. And it just felt like they had some momentum coming into this Ohio State game. And that's a tough place to go play.
Yeah.
And they played well.
I can't remember, Keith, the last time a non-conference team went up there and beat Oregon in Eugene, not Washington. They're in the Pac-12. Though this is the first year, so I wouldn't really count this as a conference game. It's really that tough up there. I didn't know that until researching.
It is very, very tough. It seems like all those teams up in the Northwest are tough on non-conference opponents at home. Now you're right. It is a conference game now, but
first year,
it's going to take a couple years to get used to that being a conference game, right? So,
yeah. What do you think about Vanderbilt beating Alabama? I haven't talked to you since that game.
Well, Vanderbilt's better than they were. They've played tough all year. They're 4-2, 2-1, I think, in the SEC right now.
Yeah,
so they're improved, but not a good look going there and losing the way Alabama did. And then Alabama turns around and does everything they can to lose that game last week to South Carolina. They did everything except lose the game. They tried very hard to lose the game. And they somehow come away with a win. And I just don't like the mojo that they've got going heading into Tennessee on the road this week. Tennessee.
That's the key.
Tennessee 3
straight road games, Keith.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough, Nick Saban, obviously they've been playing forever that week on the Pat McAfee show. Saban was there saying, the only road game that's not tough in the SEC is going to Vanderbilt.
Boy, it's like he cursed them, man.
He did. He did. But,
said he heard about that all week, too.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. And I'll tell you what, I think Alabama loses this week in Tennessee. That Tennessee's played rough the last couple weeks. They found a way to get a win in overtime last week against a bad Florida team.
But Florida's always kind of own Tennessee, though.
Yeah, that's true. And I just think this team, I think you're going to see the team at home that we saw really run roughshod over Oklahoma.
Yes.
A couple of weeks ago and played really well early in the game. I like their offense a lot. I like their defense a lot. They're athletic. I like the quarterback.
Yeah.
I think they win at home.
Still learning. Yeah.
I think they win at home.
That's going to be awesome. What do you think about this for a second before you answer this? Now, I know Texas is #1 team in the country, but they beat a Michigan team. 18 starters lost. New coach. Not as good. Not a star coach like a Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
In trouble, whatnot, with the NCAA. And then they beat an Oklahoma team with a true freshman quarterback. They're 4.5-point favorites against Texas. against Georgia. But my thing is, that was a big emotional game, the Red River, even though they dominated and blew out Oklahoma. Is there a chance that Georgia beats them and brings them down a notch come Saturday?
Oh, there's a chance. I mean, I think all these teams at the top of the SEC could beat each other in any given week.
Yeah.
I'd like Texas to win this game because it's at home, basically.
Okay.
If this game were in Georgia, I think I'd probably like Georgia in this game.
So you think it's going to be that tight, like a field goal with a one-score game?
I think so. I don't know that I'd bet this game and lay to 4.5 because I think it'll be very close. The over might be a good bet in this game if you want to do so. I think it's 56 or so.
Woo! Watch it be like 27-23 though.
Right. But again, we talk about Texas and who they played, but who's Georgia? Is Georgia the team that beat Clemson the first game,
right,
or this team that nearly got beat by Kentucky and then did get beat by Alabama?
Yeah.
Who hasn't played well?
Yeah.
Since then. So again, I think the SEC. While I still think they'll probably get 5 teams in the playoff, I just think that they could beat each other up. I mean, the schedule is going to matter. Who gets the easiest path might have the best chance to get to the at least get the bye in the playoff. I think Texas wins this league. I really do. They're really good. Cam Ewers
they got a really good offensive line, don't they?
They do. Their offensive line is really
massive.
Good. And Cam Ewers has got guys to throw to, and they, look at he's one of the best. He doesn't get talked about enough, Cam Ewers.
Yeah,
in my mind, you don't hear him and Heisman talk, and I mean, he missed a couple of games, but we hear a lot about Cam Ward, who's really, really good.
Yeah,
Giante is probably the front runner right now for the Heisman. The kid from
he's putting up cartoon numbers up there.
He's playing great. I mean, it's a quarterback award, but if a running back's going to win, it's going to be him. And you may not be able to not give it to him with the numbers he's been putting up running the football.
Man, do you see? Is there a playoff team that goes undefeated this year in the regular season? Out of the 12 team. I don't see it, Keith. I just don't see it, man.
I thought before the season, no, because again, I thought all these power conferences were so evenly matched. The SEC obviously is different than the Big 12. They're much better than the Big 12 or the ACC. But even those conferences, while being a step below the SEC and the Big 10, they're still very competitive within them.
Yes.
BYU's really good. Do I see them running the table in the Big 12? Probably not. Probably not for Iowa State either. Mm-hmm. Miami's looking for a loss. They've been running around looking.
What do you think about them against? Look, that's going to be I'm recording that game.
That's a tough spot. Again, Louisville hasn't played great and probably below their expectations, but it's a tough place to play. It's not tough to play on the road at all in college football, right?
Yeah.
If they're going to find a loss, this is probably it. The only other teams they've got, I think they could lose to. They got Florida State left. They got Duke left. They'll beat those teams. I think them, and then they got Syracuse the last game of the season.
Did they already play Clemson?
No, they don't have them on the schedule.
Maybe in the championship game?
They'd have to, most likely. And again, they don't have a great history in recent years against Clemson. That'd be a challenge for the Hurricanes. I'm excited. Listen, I like the Hurricanes. We're going to that Miami Syracuse game on November 30th.
Nice.
I was excited. I thought it was a noon game.
I heard McCord's playing good.
Yeah.
Quarterback for
very, very good. They're 5-1, and they could easily be undefeated. They could sneak into the ACC championship game if they beat Miami at home. And who knows? Pittsburgh 6-0. But I don't see any of these teams holding out and going undefeated, right?
I don't either. That I was just waiting. I was seeing if you were on my page.
Yeah.
Here, as good as Texas is, somebody's going to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't want that to be in the championship game. I mean, right? Because you want that bye. So I don't know whether. Again, I can see Texas losing. Who else is undefeated still? Oregon could lose to Ohio State the next time they play.
Purdue this week? It's a short week. It's on the road. Letdown game.
They'll win that game, but they may not cover because it's a big spread on the road. But because Purdue's really bad.
Okay, this ain't going to
Really
be a
bad.
Vanderbilt Alabama thing.
No, this would be a bigger upset than Vanderbilt beating Alabama
Wow.
this year.
You know, Vanderbilt got beat by Georgia State earlier
They
this
did.
year.
They did, but it's not. It's a much better football team. It's not top of the SEC good, but they're
Yeah.
better than they've been the last few years for sure.
Pickles, he likes to tell everybody, yes, Texas will play Vanderbilt in Nashville on the 26th. I like the quarterback from Vanderbilt. If Texas is looking ahead.
I do too. You know what? Who knows? Right now, I mean, I'm not shocked at anything that happens in college football right now. Right?
Right.
I mean, look at Army, Navy are both 6-0. They have been 6-0 since 1945 together.
That's what I was going to ask you.
They're ranked in the top 25 for the first time since 1960. Year I was born. They haven't been ranked since like 3 months after I was born at the same time.
Wow.
That's exciting, and that's fun. That's why college football is so much fun. I want to root for Army, Navy. Now, neither one of them's going undefeated, right?
They've won championships in the 30s and 40s. I've looked it up.
Oh, they were great. They were great teams in the 30s and 40s at Army and Navy, and even in the 60s, Navy still had really good teams with Staubach there and whatnot. But
Dang.
it'd be great to see one of those teams get in a playoff. And it's not. Look at Boise's really good. Boise would have to stumble and probably lose the conference championship not to get in the playoff. But if they stumble and Army or Navy wins that AAC,
wow,
they could get in the playoff. One of them.
I'm looking at the big boys. I keep forgetting about your Boise's of the world and an
You
Army and
remember
Navy.
That group of 5 is getting one of those bids. And Boise's sneaking up. Boise might even end up with a bye. I mean, the Big 12 leader right now is Iowa State, and they're at 11, I think, or 10 or 11.
Well, Matt Campbell. I thought he ran out of all his mojo.
He's 6-0 though.
Yeah. Apparently he didn't. You know, they had a rough year. Was it a year ago or a year before that? I thought
how cool would it be? Back to Army Navy real quick. How cool would it be? Because Army Navy is not a league game this year. They're still playing. They'll play every year, but it's not a conference game because they don't. Again, there's no divisions and they don't play on the schedule. Theoretically, they could play in the AAC championship game, and then the next week play the Army Navy game.
Wow,
it's possible they could play 2 weeks in a row.
That's interesting. I never thought about that. You know. Because they've been down. I know, who was it? I think Army was pretty good a few years, like 2 years ago. Weren't they undefeated late in the season?
Yeah, they've Jeff Monken's a really good coach, and he's had he's had some really good seasons there. The last couple have been down a bit, and they've changed their offense around. They throw the ball a little bit more. It's not, it's still run heavy, but they throw the ball a lot more than say Navy does. And they just moved to the conference this year. This is their first year in the American Athletic Conference. Navy's been there for a few years. And I always wanted to see these two teams play in the same conference. I thought it'd be pretty cool.
Wow.
You got to get Air Force there now.
Yeah. Does Air Force still run the option like that?
They do. Yeah. They're triple option. Yeah. They're having a bad year this year. Troy Calhoun out there is a really good football coach, but this is probably the worst year, the worst they've been since he's been there. I think they're 1-5, I think, right now. So they're out of that commander-in-chief trophy. I think they're behind Coach.
Yeah, I tell you, buddy. So you're going on the cruise next week?
Yeah, we leave Friday, the 25th, and get back on Election Day. So we'll be gone for a little while.
So the hurricane didn't mess up any of that?
Nah, the ports are fine, and we're going on New York this time. So my bad. We're leaving from New York actually in October. In February we go out of Miami, so none of that'll affect us. And if you get down there, if there's bad weather, they normally just change where they're going. We'll do some shows from there though.
Watching the games.
College football huddle in on Wednesday, but probably not at 7:00 at night, but sometime during the day. We'll get our Sunday stream of consciousness in on Sunday mornings for a couple of Sundays on the cruise ship, which is always fun.
Let everybody take a look at the water.
Yeah, I tease them. I'll find a nice place to sit where they can see everything going on behind me. And
you just carry your laptop there and do it like that?
No, I'll just do it from my phone.
Okay, that's awesome. Your phone's good like that?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
I have a lot of fun.
Yeah, Keith Engel, everybody. Chad says go Marines.
Yeah, I was saying I think the Marine Corps might be passing the Air Force this year.
Man, that's interesting. Usually that game's boring to me, the Army Navy, but I know it's a big game.
I always love that game, and the fact that
the players ain't no good.
It's a standalone game still by itself. I hope that college football doesn't mess with that. They probably will at some point, but they still got that day just for them. And is it always an exciting game to watch? Maybe not, but it's old school football a lot of times, and it's just a good tradition for me. I like traditional stuff. I'm very old school, Robert, and as I get older, I get older school.
Hey, what? Who do you got coming on Friday? I know you do that interview show on Fridays.
We actually don't have an interview. I was expected to have June Jones. I was going to tape an interview tonight with June Jones, former Falcon coach, coached Hawaii, coached SMU, was a quarterback in the NFL, and he did not make our interview. So we don't have we're going to be on and we're going to do some impromptu stuff this week. So, and then while I'm gone, we won't have any interview shows either. I'll replay a few that we've had recently. And then we'll get some new interviews back on the schedule as we head through November and December.
And that TGI, now that comes on at, is it 8 Eastern?
The one-on-one with Keith Engel is at 9 o'clock Eastern on Fridays.
Okay.
We do the Major League Baseball update at 3 o'clock Eastern on Fridays. We do the Sunday Stream of Consciousness at 8:30 Sunday mornings Eastern. And then our college football huddle at 7 p.m. Wednesdays just before you.
And I love that. Yeah, that's great stuff, man. It's a bet college is looking. I've had 2 big weekends with college, and then this weekend's going to be big. I don't know if it'll be like last weekend. That was like college football palooza.
Agreed.
I don't like these 4-hour games, though.
Now, you know what? They got to do something about, especially the end of these. I don't know what it is. Miami's had some games this year where like the third quarter would last an hour and a half, for crying out loud. It's just, I don't know what. There's too many penalties. There's too many reviews.
Yeah.
Well, they got to find a way to rein in the reviews in college football. It seems like they review every other play. It's
true.
Out of control. So it's
that's my knock on them, Keith. And they put all their games on top of each other. 7 o'clock, 7:30. That's something that baseball has got the edge on college football.
Yeah.
These games are getting over with in 2.5 hours.
Agreed. Way too long. And one game needs to be over before the other one starts, and they get screwed up because you go to watch a game and the ESPN will tell you, well, it's on ESPN 12 over here, or ESPNU, and then you get there and you finally find where the game is, and now the other game's over and they put it back on that other channel, so you got to move again.
And I
got like 4 TVs set up. I'm watching 4 games at once.
You're like Pete Rose.
That's right.
Rest in peace.
I'm like,
all right, thanks, buddy. I'm running over, man. Keith Engel, everybody. Hey, have a good one, man.
Thanks, Robert.
See you, buddy. All right, everybody. Now tomorrow I will have Kevin Carroll. We'll break down the Tennessee game in Alabama. We'll talk some more college tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody. I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place here on the Real Sports Scope.